Don in London. Hello. December 27th already, coming up to the end of the year. My videos are all about recovery from addiction to either substance or behaviour. My addictive substance, alcohol, for many, many years, decades in fact. My behaviour could be equally addictive towards people, places, things, collecting, trying to be right, trying to be perfect, although I'd never described my behaviour as trying to be perfect. The best drinker, the best worker, the best at relationships, trying to love the right girl perfectly, and of course never able to do any of those things. I could be the last man standing at a party, but how sober was I? Not that sober. And not that sober or spiritual in my outlook. So these days, one day at a time, living life as it can be lived, sober, learning, and forever learning. Life is a learning situation, and when we make the mistake of thinking or feeling that two situations are always going to be the same, then that's a form of insanity. And my attitude to my drinking was, it's okay, I'm still alive, I'm still hardworking, I'm still earning, I still have the career. But all of those things, money and career, didn't really make me happy. And it was at the end of, I suppose, climbing a very precarious mountain of a particular type of career that I realised that I was heading for more of the same, doing the same thing over and over again, and if with any luck I could get more money for it, that's the only thing that seemed to be driving me. And that's why I fell off my perch, fell off my career, fell into a pit of despair and a nervous breakdown. And that was probably the best thing that ever happened to me, because there was enough time to do something about it. But I wasn't a quick learner. My recovery has been slow and steady, sometimes 2 steps forwards and then 5 years backwards in one case. Anyway, more about that another day. So my videos are actually quite cheerful in the end, because it is about recovery one day at a time. It is about living sober one day at a time, and being in a fellowship which has helped me stay alive, without which I don't know that I would be here. So I found my rock bottom where I couldn't do it on my own anymore. Willpower had failed, and all my logical thinking just kept me drinking, because willpower said, I can do this on my own, I can get sober and stay sober, I can prove to the world that I'm a useful human being again. And it wasn't working. Whatever I did, I don't know why. That's the nature of addiction. If I knew the reason behind it, the real reason behind it, if there were one, I would have stopped, wouldn't I? So thinking kept me drinking, and these days an emotional, spiritual and physical program of recovery works for me. So if I know what my feelings are, if my feelings fit the experience I'm having, then I know I'm on the right track. And that doesn't mean they're good feelings. It can mean that they're quite argumentative and angry feelings and resentful feelings, but I need to know why they're there. So if I do it on a daily basis, nothing gets too big. But if I save up my anger and resentments for any length of time, then my thinking will get me back into the problem again, not necessarily of drinking, but old attitudes and old behaviour around being right, being put upon, being let down. And actually the only person who can do all those things, I can put upon myself and let myself down by not sharing in an open, honest way what's going on for me. So the fellowship of AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, has afforded me the luxury to find out how to be open, honest and willing to face each day as life is on life's terms, accepting what is, and then seeing if I can do something about it, either on my own, in an assertive way, or with others, with empathy. What a struggle. And I've just had 2 really good days, Christmas Day and Boxing Day, seeing family and being a part of something which is extraordinary, something I never really experienced before. My feelings being right-sized in the moment over Christmas Day and Boxing Day, and enjoying the experience of being with family in a way which was never about duty metaphor is never about duty now. It's because it's good to be in company. And it's also good to be in company and then know when to leave, because we're getting overwhelmed by it all. So I was there long enough to be a part of, without feeling, I suppose, overwhelmed by it all. And it seems these days I can do that almost for all the day, whereas before, I don't know, I was never there. I was always in a sea of alcohol. So what a change. Anyway, what is AA and how does it help me? Well, first of all, I don't speak for AA, never can, never will. It's full of unique, authentic people who speak for themselves where they will. So anonymity is sacrosanct within the rooms of AA and the fellowship. But I am allowed to speak about recovery and how fellowship helps me on a personal level. That's the way I see it. And I understand it that way. Anonymity provides sanctuary to find our truth, the truth of now. So people share as they will, where they will, and a lot just prefer to keep it within fellowship. So it may seem secretive, but it's not. It's actually honouring the spiritual foundation of anonymity, where we share as we choose. I can say I go there, but I can't say anybody else goes there. So AA, what is it? I will share the preamble here, so it slows me into the moment of now, then share some daily reflections and something from a book called Drop the Rock, and something about the spiritual principles which are involved in living with life as it is, emotional, spiritual and physical well-being. So AA. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength and hope with each other, that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organisation or institution, does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. And how we achieve sobriety or help others to achieve sobriety is often a case of our own personal experience of what has worked. But one of the things we do know about trying to help another person get sober is we may be the right person or we may be the most inappropriate person. Just because we knew how to get sober doesn't necessarily mean that somebody can hear our message, and often it is a message delivered in a different way which helps. And I witnessed an unfortunate incident recently where there had been an altercation or an argument around how to help another person. And the result was one person was saying, well, we all have our own way. And the good news about AA is we all have our own personal opinions, and that's perfectly right. And we will always try and do our best for other people. Followed by, yes, but if it were me, I would have done this. And the desire in me is to say to myself, do I want to involve myself in another person's or two other people's argument about how to help share recovery, when in fact both ways are perfectly legitimate? Do I want to put my all in and say, hang on a minute, are you sure you're arguing around the right thing here? Or are you just trying to assert your position that the other person was wrong? And often when we are doing a step 10, which is admitting we are wrong and promptly admit it, is not followed by, and by the way, I was right. Either you are admitting a wrongdoing and stepping over the mark. You don't follow it by saying, and by the way, I was right, and you ought to do it my way. So easy to fall back into those traps. So I had to walk away from that. And the reason why I walked away was simply this. None of my business how other people conduct themselves in relation to their own personal behaviour, attitudes and outlook. People are on their own spiritual path, which is how to live in the moment of now. And I suppose that's part of the theme today, about personal conduct. And from this book, the Daily Reflections here, 1 page a day, talking about the 12 steps and 12 traditions. 12 steps for personal conduct, 12 traditions to hold the fellowship together. So, 27th of December, problem solving. Quite as important was the discovery that spiritual principles would solve all my problems, as if there were anything else besides spiritual principles, because spiritual, for many people, is mind, body and breath in the moment of now. So if my mind, my body and breathing is operating reasonably well in the moment of now, I have my best spiritual connection to reality. And there's a big difference between spiritualism and religion. They are all part of the same thing, depending on your outlook. But some people are very clear on their spiritual connection to reality. Some have a very clear spiritualism around them, and some people have their own particular religious beliefs, which need to be as they wish them to be, not as I wish them to be. In fact, I have no opinion on other people's religious beliefs. I'm a bit like AA in that respect. It is not for me to impose my outlook or attitude or behaviour on another person. So when you see these videos, it's what you see is what you get. Take it or leave it, or switch off if it's not for you. That's the way it is. I don't want to undermine anybody else's life or where they're headed, unless they're jumping off a cliff, in which case I'll try and grab them before they do. Anyway, it goes on to say, through the recovery process described in the big book of AA, I have come to realise that the same instructions that work on my alcoholism work on much more. Whenever I am angry or frustrated, I consider the matter a manifestation of the main problem within me, alcoholism. As I walk through the steps, or in my case I'd actually live them, my difficulty is usually dealt with long before I reach the 12th step suggestion, and those difficulties that persist are remedied when I take an effort to carry the message to someone else. But don't tell them how to do it. Share the message and they work out how to do it. These principles do solve my problems. I have not encountered an exception, and I have been brought to a way of living which is satisfying and useful. And, you know, when it said I have not encountered an exception and I've been brought to a way of living which is satisfying and useful, is to know to what extent I can be useful to other people. And, you know, there's a phrase I use, to love, be loved back and useful, which is pretty much what sums up living a day at a time. To love, be loved back and useful in whatever enterprise or endeavour that we're engaged in. And, you know, the daily reflections, it means more each time we live a day, or if our day is going peculiarly badly, or well for that matter, it can be very helpful to us. And as it's about problem solving and spiritual, I reckon in my life I've been everything from atheist, agnostic to believer, to wanting to demonstrate to the world my superior knowledge of this, that and the other, when in fact I've just got the knowledge I've got. It's not superior to anybody else's. And one thing that fellowship taught me mostly is that we're all the same. We're the same size, we're equal to each other. Some of us have more knowledge about some things and more knowledge and wisdom about others. But, you know, all these things are complementary, and if we try and do it on our own, as I found with trying to recover from the malady of the ism of alcoholism into the solution of recovering alcoholic on a daily basis, that's fine. And some people suggest they are recovered. Well, looking backwards on yesterday, I was pretty well recovered yesterday, but I start again today because it is just one day for me. And there's a coin which is this one. I don't think you can see it too well, but it's got the 12 steps on the front, which is surrounded by recovery, service and unity, and then on the outside it says practice these principles in all our affairs, and the spiritual principles are on the back of this particular one. And it says here acceptance is the first one. That's accepting life on life's terms and where I am today. Surrender is accepting I'm an alcoholic as well, but surrendering being right, surrendering the rightness of my attitude and look on life, or outlook on life. Mine is just one. Faith in living well, to love, be loved and useful. Open-mindedness, not being closed down, that my attitude and my outlook is right. because often it's enhanced and made even more broad by the input of other people. Honesty, I try to be honest. I look to truth, finding the truth of now. And it's not my opinion or belief. Truth is universal, as is love and wisdom. So when it came to understanding of faith, or a God of my understanding, or a higher power, truth, love and wisdom, yeah, it's not my truth, it's not my way of loving, and it's not my wisdom. It's the principles of truth, love and wisdom, the absolutes of those. Willingness, yes, rather than being closed down and stuck in the malady, always looking at the problem, willingness is about solutions. Moral inventory, well, we have a step 10. What is disturbing me on a daily basis? What has worked and what has not worked? What was my part in it? And am I at fault for treading on the toes of those people around me? And do I believe I'm really right? And the answer is no, not often these days. And amends. When I'm wrong, promptly admit it, definitely. Humility is forever learning for me. Having the ability to open my head up and say, you're not right, mate, I need to keep on learning. And these steps, for example, 12 principles and the spiritual principles, are all about continuous learning about life. And it's not about my solution, it's about a solution which may be the right way forward based on what other people say. Persistence, and that's about endeavour for me, not giving up. Whereas in the past I was so broken, I had given up, and I didn't know how to get myself out of the deep hole I'd got into. And spiritual growth, learning in the day. I keep coming back to learning. And then service, unity, service and recovery. Service isn't me telling you how it is. Service is me sharing how it is working for me today. And I always say it's the many voices within fellowship that keep me sober. If I listen to one voice, the one that's going off in my head most of the time, thinking, oh my God, that's not right. It's not actually. But there is a time and a place where, experience of life tells me that I could jump in here and try and fix something. And the answer is not to fix another person's spiritual experience. It's to help them have a more full spiritual experience, if that makes sense. So I'm learning a lot on a daily basis, and I know I've become teachable again. That's the most important thing on a daily basis, to be teachable. And if I upset someone by my actions, I'm willing, more than willing, to try and make matters better if I can. Or if I can't, I'll have to shut up and live with it. So, Drop the Rock. It's not an AA publication, but it's from Hazelden, who are famous for publishing books about recovery. And I like Drop the Rock because it's about step 6 and 7. Step 6 is about our defects of character, and somebody mentioned last night they didn't like the word defects. I'm not too keen on it either. I like to call them assets and liabilities. But some of my liabilities were around fear, putting on a brave face, and an ego so brittle if you broke it there was nothing underneath. And that's my sort of defects of character: fear, brave facing and ego. And my assets, or what is described as shortcomings, not enough of something. I'm short on, often, courage, faith and confidence. Or years back, I was certainly short on courage, faith and confidence. I just went along with and tried to do whatever you told me to do, to be loved and loved back, and useful. But these days, courage, faith and confidence means I have my own opinion, and I can be assertive in some arenas when I'm on my own, assertive around my attitudes and behaviour. But when I'm with people, I need to have empathy, which is being able to ask, how are we feeling about the situation, why, and what can we do? And on page 87 in Drop the Rock, or 86 it starts. Many of us are like the man with a house by the river. We don't recognise the help that comes our way every day. That was me in the malady. Trust is learning to see the help that is already available in our lives, and knowing that more is being provided on a regular basis. We must learn to give fully of our efforts, to not drown, and let go of the results. Trust is twofold in nature: learning to trust ourselves by being true to our integrity and giving full effort and willingness, and secondly, surrendering to the process and knowing that help is available if we ask, and understanding that if we don't see the help, it may be that we are unable to see it, and that's often because my point of view is getting in the way. Not that it is unavailable, and that's what was happening last night. If I'd stepped in and tried to help, oops, I shouldn't have said last night, but it was last night, but tried to help two people come to an understanding of both points of view were equally valid, I'd have just made it worse, because it would have been unwelcome. They were so right in their own opinions. And I feel like I'm saying that I'm right in my opinion, but I don't know that I am. Trust comes through action. By acting worthy of trust, we gain the trust of others and ourselves. By acting trustworthy, we begin to see the help available when we are out of line with our spiritual intentions and our willingness to change. So, our spiritual intentions and willingness to change doesn't mean we intend to tell people what their spiritual intentions ought to be, or that they should be changing to our point of view. This is when we gain a true understanding of the process of the 6th and 7th steps, and begin to see the lessons take hold in our lives. The only things we used to trust were the things we were addicted to, namely being right, being willful, self-driven, in my case. When we began to put our trust in the program and our higher power, the destruction stopped and recovery began. So it's moving from the problem into the solution. So when I put my trust in the program, which is to hear experience, strength and hope from others about how to have courage, faith and confidence to meet the day, then my shortcomings are less. So my courage, faith and confidence improves, and I have a better solution type day. But if I step back into my defects, where I'm looking over my shoulder and fearful, then a brave face comes on because I'm uncertain, and the brittle ego, where anger and resentment can step out and smack people on the head. That's what happens. So on any given day, it can be a step 6 day full of resentments and anger, or it could be a day, step 7 day, improving my courage, faith and confidence. And what tends to happen is you get both those sorts of scenarios all day long, every day. But if we are conscious of what are our spiritual principles, and we learn to live to them just gently one day at a time, then we're back on track again in no time. We're learners, we're not perfect. So at the end of my videos I say the Serenity Prayer, and it's a reflection either to God, your higher power, simply good conscience, or whatever is your outlook. That's what counts, something which works in your life. And I've found that conscience, good conscience, God, whatever you choose, works if you work it. So I'm going to try and work it today. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference, for me, is just for today.